Swing weight and twist weight. These terms get thrown around in paddle reviews all the time, but what do they actually mean and why should you care? I'll be breaking down everything you need to know, and by the end, you'll be able to use this information to help make a better educated purchase for your next paddle. So let's get into it. A lot of you watching this video probably base your paddle purchase decision based off of the static weight that a paddle has, like 7.8 ounces or 8.1 ounces. What if I told you that static weight alone tells you almost nothing about how easy or hard your paddle actually is to swing? Or even better, what if I told you that a heavier static weight paddle could be easier to swing than one that's lighter? If you want to easily understand this, take a hammer and swing it around. Now take that same hammer, but flip it upside down and hold the head in your hand. It's going to feel significantly easier to swing because the majority of the weight is in your hand. The static weight of the hammer didn't change when you flipped it, so a paddle with more weight in the head is going to feel harder to swing, even if it's lighter than another paddle where most of the weight is in the handle. Simply put, swing weight measures how hard it is to move your paddle through the air. It factors in not just the total weight of the paddle, but also where the weight is distributed. In pickleball, we measure swing weight using a machine called the Graffiti SW1, along with the 5cm pickleball adapter. If you're coming from tennis, you might be wondering if you can use a tennis swing weight machine, and the answer is you can't. That's because tennis machines measure at 10 centimeters from the butt cap, which produces a much lower swing weight number than what's standard in pickleball. The Graffiti SW1 works by swinging the paddle back and forth and calculating a number, typically ranging between 105 and 125 for most pickleball paddles. The main thing you need to understand is that a lower number means easier to maneuver, while a higher number means harder to maneuver. There's much more nuance to this, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. From my database of over 400 plus paddles, here are the typical swing weight ranges. Paddles that are light and easy to swing range between 105 to 112. Mid-range swing weight paddles are 113 to 118. Heavier or harder to swing paddles will be 119 to 125. Many tennis players prefer swing weights in this range because they're used to swinging a much heavier tennis racket. There are, of course, outliers that go below 105 and others that go higher than 125, but they're far less common and we don't really need to get into those. Now that you know the swing weight ranges, here are a few things to keep in mind. A 5-point difference in swing weight is noticeable. If one paddle has a swing weight of 110 and another is 115, most people are going to be able to pick up on that difference. Now, a 10-point difference is significant. Everyone will notice when comparing a paddle with 110 versus 120 swing weight. It's very obvious, and the difference between those is quite drastic. You might also be wondering, how can you find out the swing weight of your paddle without buying a Graffiti SW1? The unfortunate story is you can't. Without one of these machines, there is not an easy way for you to determine the swing weight of your paddle at home. But don't worry, you can use my paddle database linked in the description down below, and you can find the swing weight for the majority of popular paddles out there. Just search for the brand or paddle name in the search bar to find what you're looking for. But keep in mind that since pickleball paddles vary in weight, that also means the swing weight varies from paddle to paddle. This is why you will often see reviewers or companies list a swing weight range for a paddle. For example, you might see something like the Carbon 2 True Foam Genesis has a swing weight ranging from 112 to 115. You don't need to stress about getting an exact swing weight number, but you do want to be sure that the paddle you are buying generally falls within your preferred range of swing weight. For example, if you wanted to buy a PaddleTech Bantam ESQC 12.7mm, on average, that's probably going to have a swing weight range from 102 to 107. On the flip side, let's say you love lightweight paddles and have a hard time with heavier paddles, well, that probably means you aren't going to buy a Gearbox Pro Ultimate 16mm because on average, that has a swing weight range from 123 to 127, and that would probably be too hard for you to swing. So you can use these swing weight ranges to help you determine if a paddle is within your normal preference or way out of bounds. You don't need to stress about getting the exact number. Now let's talk about paddle shapes and how they influence swing weight. Picking the right shape can make finding a lighter or heavier paddle much easier. In pickleball, we have 3 types of shapes and a few outliers. In general, you have wide body shapes, hybrid, and elongated. Each shape heavily influences the swing weight of a paddle. Remember how earlier I said the further away from your hand the weight is, the harder it is to swing? Well, Elongated paddles are longer, which means the weight is further from your hand. And if you look at my database, the average swing weight for an elongated paddle is 119. Now, if you take a look at hybrid paddles, which are a quarter inch shorter than elongated, the average swing weight drops to 113. Finally, the average swing weight of a wide body paddle, which is a half inch or more shorter than an elongated paddle, has an average swing weight of 107. So you can see that the shape heavily dictates the swing weight you might receive for your paddle. You can use those averages about those shapes to help you decide what type of paddle you might play with. If you're someone who really wants a low swing weight paddle on average, it's gonna be easier to find that in a wide body shape rather than elongated. It doesn't mean a low swing weight elongated paddle doesn't exist, they're just less common. Finally, many players think adding weight to the handle lowers the swing weight. It doesn't, and here's why. There are only two ways to reduce swing weight, and one of those would be to remove weight from the paddle, particularly from higher up on the paddle, because the lower areas don't impact swing weight much at all. For example, taking the grip off would not impact your swing weight at all. Some people think that by adding weight to the handle of their paddle, they can lower the swing weight. You can't. It may not increase the swing weight number by anything meaningful, but it's not lowering it. The only thing that will do is lower the balance point of your paddle, and that's a discussion for another day. Now I'm going to tell you one small trick that can make swinging a higher swing weight paddle easier. And that's choking up further on the handle of your paddle. Swing weight machines for pickleball paddles assume that most people are holding the paddle right around here, which is 5 centimeters from the butt cap. And by choking up further on the paddle, you are bringing the weight in the head closer to your hand, which is going to make the paddle easier to swing. But beyond removing weight or choking up higher, you can't reduce the swing weight of your paddle. If you've made it this far into the video, you might be asking yourself, okay, if hand speed in pickleball is so important, wouldn't I always want the lowest swing weight possible? Well, the answer is a little bit more complicated than that. Too low of a swing weight can actually hurt your game. For example, a higher swing weight, while it may make the paddle harder to swing, it also allows the paddle to plow through the ball and resist being pushed around by heavy drives from your opponent. This can make blocking and resetting balls feel much smoother when you have a higher swing weight versus one that is really low. Take that hammer example from earlier. Imagine you were trying to hit the nail with the butt of the hammer. The nail is going to resist being hit much better than if you hit it with the head of the hammer. The same thing applies to pickleball paddles. A higher swing weight often means you can hit the ball harder as well because you're transferring more mass into the ball. However, do be warned that there is a limit to this. If you can no longer swing the paddle quick enough, that extra mass won't help you hit harder. So yes, you do sacrifice hand speed with a higher swing weight, but there are also benefits. Now on the flip side, a lower swing weight will make it easier to swing the paddle quickly and generate acceleration, especially on short strokes at the net like counters. This means it isn't as simple as choose the lowest swing weight all the time. Every individual has a preference of what they find to be a worthy trade-off. For myself specifically, I tend to enjoy paddles in the 113 to 118 swing weight range. I have a harder time swinging paddles that are 123 and above. Can I do it? Of course I can do it, but I just end up feeling more sluggish at the net, and I don't find that the extra plow through is benefiting my game. So just know that it's all a trade-off, and you have to decide which trade-off is most worth it for you. What I would recommend is find the heaviest swing weight that you're still comfortable swinging for all the different types of shots you can experience in pickleball, and then use that. Don't be afraid to try a high swing weight paddle and see if you enjoy it. All right, now that you understand swing weight a little bit better, let's talk about twist weight. I'm not going to spend nearly as much time on twist weight because I think it is a far less valuable metric to you, the viewer, than swing weight is. However, it is good to have a basic understanding of it because it can help you customize your paddle with weight. Have you ever been on a court hitting a reset in the midcourt and the ball just died and the paddle felt like it twisted a bunch in your hand? What you're experiencing there is the twist weight of your paddle. This measures how much a paddle can resist twisting in the hand when a ball hits off center of the paddle. The higher the number, the more it resists twisting, and the lower the number, the more likely it will be to twist in your hand. This number is often related to a paddle having a good sweet spot. However, I want to be very clear. A high twist weight does not guarantee that it is a better sweet spot than a paddle with a lower number. Twist weight should be used much more as a guide and less of a hard fact. We're even seeing newer paddle technologies that have low twist weights that traditionally would have been seen as bad, but the sweet spots are actually performing quite well. But anyways, twist weights range between 4.5 and 8, which is a much smaller range than swing weight. So you'll frequently see twist weights with a decimal place in them. For example, 6.17 versus 7.34. You won't see people report twist weight as a whole number because the range would be too small to understand the differences. Generally speaking, there are 3 ranges that twist weight can fall into. Anything below 6.2 is considered a poor or low twist weight. Anything between 6.2 and 6.7 is considered average, and then anything above 6.7 is generally regarded as good or high. Just like swing weight, paddle shapes heavily influence what type of twist weight you will get from your paddle. Wide body paddles have the higher twist weights because there's more weight at the edges of the paddle. Just like how swing weight goes up rapidly the further the weight is from your hand, the same thing applies to twist weight. The further the weight is from the center of the paddle out to the edges, the faster twist weight will go up. The closer the weight is to the center of the paddle, the less it impacts the twist weight. As your paddle gets longer and skinnier, your twist weight will go down because the paddle is more narrow. This is why people place weighted tape directly at the sides of their paddle. This is the position that increases the twist weight the most and makes your paddle feel more stable. Now, really quick, edgeless paddles almost always have very low twist weights, and that's because they took the edge guard off the paddle. Like I said, the more weight there is at the edges of the paddle, the higher the twist weight is going to be. So since edgeless paddles don't have an edge guard, they don't have as high of a twist weight. So almost always you're going to find that edgeless paddles are less stable than paddles with edge guards. There are, of course, outliers on both sides, but generally speaking, that's how it works. As noted a second ago, you don't need to stress out about twist weight. It isn't a metric I would ever purchase a paddle based on. Twist weight is more useful to understand for customizing your paddle with weight and for understanding that wider paddles are more stable by default than an elongated paddle. This information can help you better understand why certain paddles play the way they do, and by knowing that, you can customize them in specific ways to limit the issues that they may present. Finally, I want to stress one last thing. There's a common thought in pickleball that when customizing your paddle, you should try and minimize your increase in swing weight and maximize how much twist weight you add. This makes sense, right? You want a paddle that is still fast in the hand, but also very stable. The problem is, just like swing weight, you can actually have too much twist weight. Remember, twist weight refers to how the paddle handles being rotated side to side when impacted by a ball. Well, in pickleball, for certain movements at the net, like rolls, you do turn your wrist over to add more topspin or hit the ball down. If you add a lot of weight at 3 and 9, you'll notice this motion gets a lot slower. Now, I would argue that this movement is not nearly as important as how swing weight can impact your swings, but it is still something that should be considered. How high is too high for twist weight is not really known at this time, but just know that it is possible to get to a point where too much twist weight is probably slowing you down. So there you guys go. That should help you better understand what swing weight and twist weight are and how they can impact the performance of your paddle. Hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next video.